I think we learned a valuable lesson today from Tokyo ESP. You never fuck with a penguin, because if you do, they're going to have a shark bite into you, steal your powers, and probably almost kill you. So, never fuck with a penguin, and we learned a valuable lesson this week. So make sure you put that into memory, because if you ever come in contact with a penguin, never mess with the person that penguin loves, or it will probably hurt you. So anyways, this week's episode of Tokyo ESP was fantastic. I enjoyed it, and I am enjoying this series more and more as the weeks go by. This episode pretty much concludes this little mini arc with Murasaki, getting to see how her power works, getting to see a little bit more connection to, I'm guessing, the main antagonist of this series. I'm guessing probably going to be the main antagonist at the end of Tokyo ESP. For instance, what we saw in the first episode of Tokyo ESP, for instance, that dude in the epic awesome suit, well, pretty much, I'm guessing they're slowly starting to build up to that entire plot line at the end of this episode, because you're already starting to see it in the works. Now, the episode overall, I guess I enjoyed the different reveals of it, because the reveals were pretty entertaining. For instance, the entire penguin Peggy, okay? Now, I talked about last week about how the glowing fish, the goldfish and stuff are like giving the people powers, but there was an interesting thing that popped up in this episode. For one thing, it confirms that animals most likely can have ESP powers or Esper powers. Now, I don't know if Peggy is directly linked to this stone tablet, that little tablet that has goldfish coming out of it, but if Peggy is directly linked to it, then there's something else going on here, because they're both animals. But there's another thing too that really intrigues me. I mean, there's different ways that Peggy can be taking their powers. For instance, this could be an Esper power that Peggy has, and it actually could just, absorb powers from other people. And so technically, Peggy isn't directly linked to the goldfish, but he has the power to just absorb more power. So, I'm interested to find out if that is true or not, because if Peggy isn't directly linked, then he just has a very unique Esper power. And if he does have that power, he's really fucking overpowered for a penguin. I'm just gonna be honest. And I wonder what kind of role he's going to play later on. And also, does this confirm that animals can have Esper powers? That's the big thing right now. Now, overall, besides that, I want to talk about a couple of things, okay? Last week, a couple of Chibits announced in the comments and were shocked I did not mention this certain element, which I failed to mention. I recognized it, I knew it, and I saw it, but I failed to mention it. Now, the Rinka's dad, okay? Rinka's dad. Now, I said that he kind of reminds me of Magneto with his powers. Well, there's another thing he reminds me of, which, like I said, I failed to mention a couple times. He has the entire Wolverine design going on. He has the entire, the shirt going on, the muscles, even the hairstyle is the same. If you look at his hairstyle and you compare Wolverine, he looks just like an older version of Wolverine. That's exactly what he looks. I mean, it's really crazy how similar his character design is compared to Wolverine if you compare the characters. For instance, if you were to look at the cover on my anime list, if you were to go on look at the cover, you will see, Rinka's father holding like 3 knives like Wolverine, like between his fingers. It's nice, but it looks like, the claws that Wolverine uses. And so it definitely is directly linked to Wolverine. So I found that very interesting how they did that. So if you did not know that, go check out the picture on my anime list and you'll see that. So anyways, this episode, we find out a little bit of backstory on Crowhead. For instance, he has this sister that's part of his family, Minami, the teleporter girl that we saw in the first episode, that's directly linked to the bad guys, the bad organization. We don't technically have a name yet. Pretty much is kin to our main character, Crowhead. So I like that how they revealed that this episode. So it's definitely starting to add some conflict. Honestly, I personally believe I dislike how they used the first episode to show kind of almost the climax of that arc, because it makes all future reveals of certain individual characters, for instance, Minami being able to teleport and being kin to our main male character, Crowhead, it made it less impactful. For instance, because I kind of expected it was her, but it was shocking to find out that they were kind of kin. But still, the big thing, though, is that I guess they did it for reasons to, I guess, grip viewers to want to continue watching this, which they did with me. I wanted to continue watching it after that first episode, but I feel like it kind of brought down the overall, like, oh my god, who is this type, shock factor. Now, I like the animation overall in this episode. The animation looks good. There's only a couple scenes, I think, in this episode that didn't look the best. It wasn't bad. By no means was the animation bad. But, I mean, there was a couple scenes when they were just talking, and a little bit in the distance, you saw a little bit of the faces that looked a little bit derpy. But besides that, the animation looked really good, and the music definitely backed it up. Now, overall, the episode is entertaining. I enjoyed it. It had, proper execution to conclude this arc, and it feels like right at the end of this episode, you have Professor Xavier popping up. For instance, he's like, I'm the professor, and I'm like, oh my god, Professor Xavier, because there's so many X-Men references, so it completely reminds me of Professor Xavier, but with legs. Now, I enjoyed the key little subtle references they add into the series because, if you know your Marvel history, and if you watch the movies and stuff, most likely you will see a lot of these different things. Probably more than me, because I haven't read the comics, so I bet everybody that's read Marvel comics are probably just fangasming over this series because, oh my god, they're referencing all these different characters. So, overall, everybody, tell me your thoughts about this episode of Tokyo ESP. Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? What was your favorite moments about it? I love all of you so much. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.